Good evening and welcome to Legacy After the Locker Room. I'm your host, Kayla Bradham, here today with NFL alumni Alec James. Good evening, Alex.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for being a guest tonight. One of my local hometown heroes. Alec played for the Cardinals, graduated from UW Madison. Tough loss against Notre Dame this past week. If anybody out there is a Big Ten, welcome to all of our listeners and supporters. Thank you so much. Alec, I want to just start by asking you football, sports as a little boy. What were you passionate about? What was your experience growing up in Wisconsin with sports?
Honestly, I was just passionate about running around like any other kid. I remember having a lot of energy, playing any kind of sport I could, basketball, football, track, racing kids on the playground, really anything I could do that was competitive, I enjoyed. And at a young age, my dad, he actually played in the NFL before I was born. So at a young age, when I was born, I kind of knew I wanted to follow in his footsteps as I got older and older in football. But as a kid, it was really just playing any sport possible. I was actually born in Iowa, and I moved here in 2000 when I was 6 years old. So I grew up in Wisconsin, and that's kind of when I got integrated into the Wisconsin culture and got to see what it was all about.
I think that's great. So, saying that is one thing. Going to UW Madison is another compared to all of the great schools that are out there, especially in the Big Ten, but all across the country. How did you choose UW Madison and, what did that college selection look like for you?
Yeah, so for me, I was lucky to have someone like my father who went through sports, and then I have two older sisters. One of them was a high jumper at Marquette, so I kind of got to see the recruitment process through her. She went through it way before I did. So when it was my time to get recruited, I kind of knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know how football was compared to track. So the first school that recruited me was Iowa State. They had me come down and they had me come to a practice and watch everything. And at the end of the practice, I remember it was Coach Rhodes. He was there at the time. And he goes, "Hey, I want to let you know we're going to offer you a scholarship." And in my mind with track, it's a lot of partial scholarships. So I was like, okay, cool. Is it cover my books or what? And he kind of laughed at me and he was like, "No, it's a full ride scholarship. Most football scholarships are full ride." So I felt funny about that, but that was my first offer. And then after that, they kind of started rolling in a little bit. And Wisconsin was definitely one of the bigger ones that I was excited about just growing up here in Wisconsin. And at the time, it was Coach Bielema recruiting me. And I went on my visit and ended up committing there right before my senior year.
Fantastic. And so I guess, one of the things that people keep asking me about is NIL, the name, image, and likeness. And I got certified in it so that I could help athletes because as a mom, I really care that the kids are monetizing what they can, but also that they're getting a good education, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of kids aren't going to go pro like you did. So,
Right.
Alec, what would you say? What are your thoughts about NIL?
I think it's an incredible opportunity. So I was actually involved with a court case that Nigel Hayes actually brought me onto when I was in college, and we were really trying to fight for just athletes getting paid for things like their name, image, and likeness. And the big thing for me was, I was going to school with a lot of guys and who had come from nothing, and all of a sudden, they see their name or their picture, their face on a billboard or a bus, but at the end of the day, they have nothing. They can't get any of that. Then they wonder where's the money going. Like I'm sitting here, I have no money, but my name and image are being profited. So I think it's an incredible opportunity. I think it's early in terms of how things are shaking out and seeing. I think it'll be interesting to see how it changes throughout the years, but I think this is an incredible first step. And athletes being able to take advantage of themselves and really market themselves and be that business for themselves and profit through more than just sports. I think it's an incredible opportunity to learn how the business side of things, the marketing side of things, and really just taking advantage of your own skill set.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you know, it is a great entry also into the NFL, where there is the greater opportunity for sponsorship. I know I've talked to some athletes. I'm like, who's an ideal sponsor for you? And for example, at Big Ten Media Days, I heard Nike, Under Armour. I'm like, bro, you're not getting a sponsorship in college from Nike and Under Armour, but
Yeah.
good luck. You focus on getting good grades and working hard in your community and being the best you can be.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so speaking of being the best you can be, you made it into the NFL. Holy
Hmm.
smokes, right?
Yeah.
So so for all the young people who are watching and they're like, man, that's my dream. I don't care
Yeah.
how long I'm in the NFL. I just want to get there. Speak to their hearts. What does it take to get in and shoot your shot?
Yeah. I think everybody's a little different. For me, it was realizing that it's the road less traveled. Always making the right choices, not only on the field but off the field. I think people underestimate how much goes into it off the field. Like, it's not just in college making plays on Saturdays. It's doing film study. It's eating right. It's stretching. It's working out. It's putting in the extra time when nobody's watching. What really set me apart and gave me my opportunity, because without that, I wouldn't have made it. So for me, it was really not being afraid to be my own person, make the hard decisions, to miss out on things, maybe miss out on parties or get-togethers or things like that, because you're chasing a goal and your window of opportunity is so small. You really have to do everything possible to take advantage of it, and it goes super fast. I remember my first year, I was like, man, this is going to be a long 4 years. You're a freshman, your whole schedule is booked all day, every day. You're getting beat up at practice here and there, and but then I remember specific moments my senior year thinking like, man, this went so fast, and this was such an incredible opportunity to be here. So that first and foremost, and secondly, just believe you can do it. There's going to be people who don't think you can do it. There's going to be people who think you may be crazy for trying to do it, but a lot of those same people maybe had that dream and it didn't work out for them, so they don't think it can work out for you. But if you have that self-belief, surround yourself with people, like-minded individuals. For me, it was guys I lived with when I was at Wisconsin, like TJ Watt, Corey Clement, Leon Jacobs, Chikwe Obashi. Like, those are my core group of guys that I surrounded myself with, and we all kind of thought the same and grew up in the Wisconsin area, besides Corey and Leon. But really just taking things a day at a time. It's going to be a long process, but it's definitely possible. Trust me. Doesn't matter where you go to school. You don't need to go to the biggest, Alabama or Wisconsin, or you can go anywhere. There's people in the NFL that get paid to find you. So if you're doing the right things, making the right choices, and making plays, somebody will find you and give you an opportunity, and then it's just up to you and your preparation.
And Alec, let's talk about that for a second. Obviously preparation is key, and I know you're really into physical fitness, and we could talk about preparation and dedication all day long. But when it comes to the NFL as a business, right?
Mhm.
What would your what I guess the first thing I want to ask is, what was your favorite experience, your highlight moment in the NFL?
Mhm.
And then second of all, it's the transition out of the NFL and what that looked
Mhm.
like.
Yeah. So favorite moment would probably be getting the call that I was on the. So I went undrafted to Arizona, was there all off season, went through camp, and then it comes down to that final moment of the cuts. Like, everyone's on cut day, and I think my greatest moment was just them letting me know I was on at least the practice squad, because I knew, like, hey, I'm like, this is my dream. I'm living it. Like, this is what I do. Even though it's not like starting defensive end for the Cardinals, it's still, I made it. I'm in the NFL. I was in it before, but I made it past the cut period where I'm still on the team. And that was a really special moment for me. I mean, I was in a new place. I didn't know anyone out there. I didn't have any family. So all I did was, like, I took myself to Longhorn Steakhouse for lunch and just, like, sat there by myself. But I remember being so happy and just, sitting there being proud that, hey, I did it. This was my dream and I accomplished it. And then as far as transitioning out, football for me was never something that, it was my whole life. I definitely dedicated so much time and effort to it, and I loved every second of it. And if I could go back, I'd do everything the same, but it was never something I wanted to define me. I never wanted to be just like the athlete, Alec the athlete. I wanted to be these other things. So I took school very serious. I took, thinking about different backup plans very serious. So after my time in NFL, I just kind of looked back and I was like, man, I had fun, but I think it's just time for me to walk away on my own terms. And I was able to walk away successfully without any injuries or anything like that, and really just focus on the next phase of life, which I was happy about. My family was very supportive, friends were very supportive, and I was able to walk away happy and not really ever look back. The biggest thing I miss is just the times in the locker room with the friends and guys you've spent so many hours with. But as far as practice and games and all that, I had my fun and I had a great time, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.
I love it. So I want to talk about transitioning out and what that next phase
Mm.
looked like. But before we do, I want to take a moment. First of all, thank our listeners for supporting the Sports Philanthropy Network. Remind everybody you can catch the Legacy After the Locker Room Tuesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 Central. We are powered by the Sports Philanthropy Network, and we're here tonight with former NFL alumni Alec James. Alec, tell the listeners a little bit about the really cool things that you're doing right now. Giving back to the community, giving back never stopped for you. Being a great
Yeah.
team player never stopped, never ended. What are you doing now?
Yeah, so my biggest thing when I was playing was I love being accessible to people. Not too many times can someone come across like a college football player or someone who's in the NFL. So I always loved being able to be just a regular person. And, even though I'm doing this thing, we fill stadiums and people watch on TV all across the country. But like, I've always felt like just a regular guy, whether I was playing or not. So I loved being able to be that resource for people that could come and ask me questions, do things like this where, hey, how could I make it? How could I do things? What's your advice? Things like that. So transitioning out of football, I knew I wanted to still be that person where I could help people, be accessible, and use kind of my unique background and experiences to just be a resource. So my dad, he's actually been a firefighter in Kansas City, Missouri, for 20, 25 plus years. So I knew that was a lane I was very interested in since a kid. And when it was my time to look at something else besides football, I looked at a couple of different things. I tried a couple of different things, but eventually I hit a point where I was like, man, what am I doing? I know I want to be a firefighter. Like, let's just get to it. So I went back to my local community college back in Milwaukee, got an EMT license, did some private EMS for a while, and then I got hired here back in Madison on the fire department. So now I'm serving the people of Madison.
So tell us a little bit about that. What is a day in the life like? Is it all putting out fires and saving little kitties up in trees, or is there more to it?
I think it depends who you ask. But no, it really every day is different. I got out of the academy back in June, so I got hired in March, was in the academy till June, and now I've been in the station since June. And every day is different. You show up, you have a routine of doing the same thing when you show up, of checking things over, making sure everything is right, make sure we have everything on the engine or the ladder or whatever you're on for the day. And then really after that, it's the day could go anywhere. It could be a slow day where you're not really doing too much besides little duties you have around the station, trainings, things like that. Or it could be a day where you're running calls all day, every day, and all night. We run from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m., so it's a 24-hour shift. And within that 24 hours, it's hard to plan when you don't really know what's going to happen. So you just kind of got to be ready for anything.
Well, and I think it's great. And let's just take a moment to remind our listeners, and you and I set this podcast up quite a while ago. One of the reasons we
Mm.
did it now is a Fire Prevention Awareness Month. So let's take a quick moment to remind all of our listeners, all of our viewers, be a good human, take care of your pets, animals, and loved ones,
Yeah.
and change your smoke detector batteries when you set your clocks.
Exactly.
So, little friendly service
Exactly.
reminder from former NFL alumni Alec James and the Sports Philanthropy Network. Um, Alec, let's talk a minute about if it wasn't firefighting. You said that was always something that was on your heart. What
Mhm.
are your other passions, your other interests, other career opportunities that you did consider?
Yeah, so I'm a big person. I love to just try things. I'm never afraid to start over. And I think that's helped me throughout, whether it be football or firefighting or whatever I want to do. I'm never afraid to just try something just to try it. I never want to look back and be like, man, I wish I would have tried that. So when I first got out of football, I had a plan, and then I was out of football, and it was time for the plan to happen. And I was like, oh man, I don't even know if I want to do this. I got a degree in personal finance and then a certificate. So I thought I wanted to go the personal finance route, and I realized, it wasn't quite for me. I love doing it for myself, but for other people, it was just something I like doing for me. I tried marketing for a little bit. I tried a sales job. I only lasted 5 days. It was in a cubicle, and it wasn't for me. And yeah, and that's when I ended up realizing I wanted to do firefighting. I was actually looking into doing medical sales, and I was working with a company back in Arizona, and I was about to fly out there to sign a contract and move my life out there. And a couple of days before I was supposed to fly out there, I was like, man, what am I doing? Like, I've wanted to be a firefighter since I was a kid. Like, let me just do that. So I quit. I ended up not doing that, and then I went on that route. And now that I'm here, it's just figuring out what else I want to do. What else am I passionate about? Trying different things, and I don't know what's next. I think right now I've just been diving fully into the fire department and trying to learn as much as I can. But I think down the road I'll figure out something else, whether it's teaching life safety stuff, maybe CPR classes and things like that, or really just anything, maybe working at a hospital as a tech part-time. I'm not sure. We'll see where life takes me.
So I think that's a great answer. And, it just really resonates with me because I've had so many conversations this week where I've encouraged people, just start walking on your path.
Mm-hmm.
Just start, and life will unravel, and before you know it, you'll be old like me, and you'll have figured it out. So you brought up a good point that I want to talk about, Alec. And it was the degree in finance, the dabbling in marketing. And I want to kind of go back to NIL, and I want to go back to, a tough school like Madison. Madison is an academic school, right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing, this whole conversation that we're seeing about athletes getting blow off majors and just getting kind of passed through with some general communications or
Yeah.
general kind of whatever. Let's talk about what that really looks like as an athlete in college and focusing on those courses. Do you feel like there is too much of a blow off so that when kids don't make it to the NFL, they're really not set up to be successful? Or, you hear the debate. I know you do. What's your
Mhm.
take on it?
Yeah, I'll be as honest as I can, and that's very honest. So I think it depends on the school. When I went to Wisconsin, they were all about challenging us academically and really doing whatever you wanted to do. It wasn't a school where they were just going to stick you in this little major and pass you through. It was really, well, the first day I remember sitting there with my academic advisor, Leanne Bird. She was incredible. First day, she was like, well, what are you interested in? What do you think you want to study? And I told her, I think at the time it was like kinesiology or something, and I didn't even know what it meant. I just was like, that's what people are saying, so it sounds like I should say it. But so we went down the path, seeing what that looked like, and really we just came up with a roadmap of what I wanted to study. I knew I didn't want to go that quote unquote communications route. I wanted to try something different, and I actually changed my mind a few times, just like with work, with what I've done after the NFL. I changed my mind about my major, and that's okay. You can't be afraid to change your mind because it's your life. You're in control of it. But there are some schools that I've heard of that do that, where you may have an idea of what you want to do, but you get there and they say, okay, well, maybe later. How about you try this major or this degree? And for me, I love telling the story. It's embarrassing, but you learn from it. I In high school, like, I was all sports. Like, I was like, oh, I'll just play football and forget school. So after my freshman year of high school, I had a 1.8 GPA. Like, the only class I had an A in was like gym, and that's it, because I just didn't care. And after that, I remember I told my mom, and she hit me with the disappointment line. She wasn't mad. She was just disappointed. And just that feeling and being like, man, I'm disappointed in my mom. Sports may not even work out because I have to get my grades right. It kind of was a realization for me, and I was glad I hit that point early in high school rather than later. So after that, I remember in high school, I didn't get below, I think, a 2.5 or 3.0. And then once I got to college, I knew, okay, I got to start myself off right. I can't dig myself in a hole my first year. So after that, I ended up graduating with a 3.0 from Wisconsin with a degree in personal finance and a minor in leadership. I was on the dean's list. I was academic all Big Ten 3 times. So I learned from that experience, and being able to share that, like, yeah, it sounded like I was a dumb kid, which I was, because I thought sports could carry me my whole life. But you just got to learn from that and be willing to be open with people and tell them about your experiences. So that was my experience of learning, what it meant to be a student athlete, not just athlete or an athlete student.
Yeah. Great, great. Thank you for sharing that story, because I think a lot of us need to be reminded of it. And it's just
Mhm.
not just the student athletes, it's the parents of student athletes as
Mm.
well, right? So,
Yeah.
um, question for you. We talk about leadership, we talk about teamwork. Let's talk about coaching. Best coach you
Mhm.
ever had and why?
Oh man, you're trying to get me in trouble.
Yep.
I've had a lot of
Yeah.
great coaches. I don't think I could say just one. If I'm saying just one, I would say I can't. I'd say, I've had coaches all throughout my life, all levels of football. So I can't give you just one.
All right, I can buy that. I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want any coaches coming up, roughhousing you,
Yeah.
popping you upside the head because you didn't get
Yeah. Yeah.
just give us a couple of the coaches who really influenced you,
Yeah.
and tell us a little bit about that, because my whole goal is to create hope and possibility. And
Mhm.
I think great coaches don't have to be on the field. We're all
Right.
great coaches if we set our mind to it.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my mindset went when you asked me that. I was like, my dad and my mom have been coaches, my grandparents have been coaches. So it's more than just football coaches. And I think the best ones have been my family, like whether it be my 2 sisters, my grandparents, my mom, my dad, cousins, aunts, uncles. Those have been the core that have been with me since day one. And then there's best friends. I have a best friend. My best friend played football at West Point. He's been a great coach for me. His dad's been a great coach for me. So there's just so many different ones. Yeah, I can't. I can't.
So I get that, and actually,
Mhm.
Alec, I love your response. I
Yeah,
love that it wasn't Bulema or something else,
yeah,
and the reason why is because you're really proving the point. Anybody
mhm,
can be a great coach.
yeah,
Go be that person. So let's talk about, for example, your dad playing in the NFL,
mhm.
lots of experience. What has he done and spoken to your heart that has really impacted you as a player and as a man?
Yeah.
Go
His
ahead and speak to
so.
your dad. This is your moment to tell your dad how good he is.
Oh, I tell him. He was just here actually last weekend. But with him, his biggest thing for me was learning from his mistakes. So I think that's what makes me be so open about, whether it be school or where I messed up in football and things like that. That's what helps me be so open, because I know his openness helped me. And for him growing up, it was, even since the first day I played football, it was always, yeah, here's this thing, football, if you're going to play, make sure you have a backup plan, because it's not if you get hurt, it's when. Like, at some point you're going to get hurt. It may be bad enough to where you never play again. So come up with a plan. And that advice right there carried me through my whole career and post career, because I was never one of those guys who's like, oh yeah, I'll just play football my whole life and then I'll make millions of dollars and I'll retire and that'll be it. Like, sometimes things are out of your control. So I always wanted to have somewhat of a bare bones backup plan. And when you finally do have to kick it in place, it is kind of scary, but at least you have something to go off of. It's not like, the rug has been pulled out from under you and like, what am I going to do now? So that was some big advice for him. When I was going through the recruiting process, he was very helpful. Him and my mom were both very helpful. But his advice was, you're getting recruited by all these schools, you're going to visits, you're going to Oregon, Notre Dame, Michigan State, Wisconsin, but pick a place where you want to go to school, because again, I've been telling you this since you were a kid. It's not if you're going to get hurt, it's when. So when you go to these schools, imagine yourself if you get hurt, and are you still going to wake up being a regular student and still going to go to class? Are you still going to be a successful student? Are you still going to do the things you need to do to succeed off the field if football for some reason is taken away for you? And that was, I think, what I realized when I was going to Wisconsin was, if somehow I couldn't play here, I could still picture myself going to school here, being a successful student, doing the things I needed to do without kind of getting lost. So he was very instrumental in me picking the right place.
I love it. I want to just put up here, anybody watching our interview, our vodcast, they can see to follow Alec on LinkedIn. His handle is Alec James. And to follow Alec on Instagram, Black X Superman. Black X Superman. I think that's so dope. Tell everybody how you got that, because I asked you.
Yeah.
Tell us about that story. And also, I want to ask you about the picture in the background.
Yeah. So the story of the Black X Superman, it stems from my grandpa. So as a kid, I loved Batman. Like I still do to this day. I was a huge Batman fan, and he was a huge Superman fan. And when I was a kid, he would always tell me that he was Superman. And, he may have like a cut on his arm or something. And as a kid, I'd be like, where'd you get that cut from? And he'd be like, oh, I was saving the city last night. And as a kid, I believed he was Superman. So I just kind of ran with it. I was like, well, if you're Superman, I'm going to be Batman. So as I grew older, I kind of just took over that persona of the Superman thing and idolized him in that way. And just kind of stuck. I still love Batman, Superman, anything. So, and as far as the picture in the back, I just love music. Biggie's one of my favorite artists of all time. And I actually got that painting from a guy in Green Bay, and he gave me another painting of myself actually from when I was playing football for the Badgers. But he painted that on a mirror, and he said it only took him like 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, man, you got to give that to me. And it's heavy. It's huge. Like, it may look small on the camera, but it's big.
Super cool. Biggie's a legend, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Alec, we have about 3 minutes left. I did not prep you for this, and I apologize, so I don't mean to catch you off guard. I do ask every guest on Legacy After the Locker Room to partner with me in supporting my charity of choice, which is Special Olympics. Alec, can we count on you for an autograph donation to Special Olympics?
Yeah, no problem.
That's awesome. Any idea what you might donate?
I don't know. What
I totally caught you off guard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it, but I'll do it.
Okay, I love that. That is always the right response. Just so you know, always just say, yeah, sure thing. Kayla, whatever you need, I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So, with just a few minutes left in the show, Alec, I want to give you a moment to thank the people in your life that you need to thank, the people who really deserve those shout outs. And I want to give you a moment to just share with our listeners your parting words of wisdom.
Yeah, so the people in my life I want to thank, I try to thank them more than when I just have this one opportunity on a podcast. So I don't, I don't want to sit here and rifle off a bunch of names because I know I'll miss somebody and I'll feel bad. But everybody who's been in my life that supported me on the field, off the field, when I've messed up, when I've made great things happen, whatever in life, I appreciate everybody, whether it be teachers from elementary school, middle school, high school, family, close friends, far friends, everybody. It took everything, every decision I've had has led me up to this point in life. So I appreciate everything along the way, whether it's been good or bad. And I appreciate all the lessons. And I think that's my advice for people moving forward is realize that, things may look dark, but there's always that light at the end of the tunnel. Even if you can't see it, just keep going and eventually you'll find it. And don't be afraid to lean on different people. There's been times I've had to lean on people have had to lean on me, and it's okay to ask for help. We're going through this crazy time with the pandemic, and a lot of people feel isolated coming off of a year of being at home, but we're also living in this time, this day and age where you can be connected with anyone in the world and ask help from anyone in the world. So that's what I say to anybody listening or watching or in the future going to watch. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It's on you, and that puts that responsibility on you because and anyone is just a message away and a click away or a phone call or whatever. So don't be afraid. If you need someone to talk to, reach out to me. My my Instagram's on here, my LinkedIn's on here. I love being a resource for people. So feel free to reach out. No problem. It's too big for people to tackle if we all get together.
Yeah, and I think that's so cool. Probably every so often, a former professional athlete comes on and says, "Reach out to me," and I get so much feedback from our listeners, from the community, saying, "Oh my gosh, that athlete was so real. I felt like that was somebody I'd be friends with in real life," and I think that's the goal. I
Mm-hmm.
really think that's the goal. So, for anybody watching, Alec James on LinkedIn, Black X Superman on Instagram. Thank you to the Sports Philanthropy Network for powering the legacy after the locker room. My name is Kayla Bradham. I'm your host here tonight with Alec James, former NFL, Arizona Cardinal, Wisconsin Badger, and we're here to remind you to live your legacy. Thanks, Alec.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the opportunity and for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.